about food security because I'm always concerned that they're not going to define their terms and instead use it to sort of pick out 2 or 3 farms in their constituency, declare that those 3 are absolutely vital to food security, and then do nothing else. It's a very easy argument to pick out selectively. It's much more challenging to think about broadly. If trade were to stop tomorrow, as in if the port of Dover stopped, the UK farming would have considerably more problems than just the volumes that you produce. Quite literally, the fuel that goes into your tractors is in part refined elsewhere. The global supply chains are much more complex than just, do we produce enough calories for the number of mouths there are in the UK? So I think a valid question, if you are talking about food security from a national standpoint, is, are we so reliant on individual potentially hostile suppliers of things in our food chain that they can alter our policy making by threatening it? And B, is our food basket, is our food picture resilient enough to adjust, adapt, and continue to meet the needs of the British people through a mix of domestic production and imports in an uncertain world where individual nodes are facing greater pressure from climate change, but also from geopolitics? I think that is a sensible and rational way to look at it, and domestic farming is a huge chunk of that. But it's really important to hold politicians to the fire and say, what exactly are you preparing us for when you say you're interested in food security for national security? What's the vision, and what will it take to achieve that?
Yeah. And just to add, if you were to take any metric, if you take the balance of trade figures that I use there in terms of a £3.5 billion a month deficit, in terms of crisis, that's surely not something that we want to be too heavily reliant on. If you look at food security, we are at best seeing that stagnate. It's more likely that it is starting to decline. And therefore, again, come back to the opportunity that the President set out this morning, that we've set out in our conference report, that with the right enabling framework, there is growth and opportunity for British farmers.
Unfortunately, we have to bring the session to an end because Secretary of State is in the wings. Can I apologise for those who had posed questions? Sorry, we ran out of time. Just to reflect at the end and thank Dimitri and Gail as well for being so open with us. This will be my last conference as an office holder, and having read Dimitri's book, and after what Tom said this morning regarding how painful the last 15 months has been, I'm more committed now than ever, as should you as well, for having belonging to a strong professional organisation as well, to lobby on our behalf. And that strong organisation is the NFU. We are far stronger together. So thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome NFU President Tom Bradshaw.
Good afternoon, Conference. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the Secretary of State, Emma Reynolds, to the NFU Conference. Since Emma was appointed in September, we've had many conversations, notably in her first day in office and then also on her third day when she spoke at Back British Farming Day. In between these meetings, we'd managed to sneak in another meeting with Dame Angela Eagle, the Farming Minister, and the whole of the food chain. I was struck in that first conversation with Emma that it seemed to be the growth opportunities and the need for investment to deliver a resilient food system that seemed to be at the centre of her approach. Emma, we had a very tough conversation on the inheritance tax only an hour after the budget. I'm grateful for your willingness to listen, to engage openly and honestly and constructively on inheritance tax. I'm convinced that that helped lead to the change in the threshold. Today, I hope we'll hear from the Secretary of State what her vision is for the future of DEFRA policy, notably the SFI, and the importance of thriving domestic food production and how this can be delivered. Ladies and gentlemen, Emma Reynolds.
Thanks for what you said. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you, Tom, for that kind introduction. And thank you to the NFU for the invitation today. It's a pleasure to be here and to see so many familiar faces. For well over a century, the NFU has been the backbone of British agriculture, supporting farmers through wars, recessions, droughts, and the sweeping changes that have reshaped our countryside. You have consistently made the case for British farming, and our country is stronger for it. On my first day as Secretary of State, Tom and Terry were the first stakeholders I met in person. And 3 days later, I was delighted to speak at your Back British Farming reception. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Terry, for your many years of tireless service to the NFU and representing farmers' interests to government. We wish you well when you move on to pastures new. For many years, I've lived in and around rural communities. So I came to this role with muddy wellies and some understanding of the challenges and opportunities for British farming. I represent a semi-rural constituency and have visited many farms over the years, some as an MP and some with my youngest son who loves pig farms. What I have seen on those farm visits has only strengthened my respect for this sector. British agriculture employs hundreds of thousands of people, sustains rural communities and contributes billions to our economy. Farmers are the custodians of 70% of England's land and provide 65% of the food we eat. My first farm visit following my appointment as Secretary of State was to David Exwood's farm in East Sussex. I'm still thinking about those pork pies from your farm shop, David. Proper pastry, proper filling, and they were properly gone by the time I got home. On that same day, I appointed this country's first ever Commissioner for the tenant farming sector, Alan Laidlaw. Alan and David taught me through the pressures facing farmers, the volatile markets, the rising input costs, the unpredictable and extreme weather. So when I became Secretary of State, I was determined to take action to back farmers. On inheritance tax, I had many conversations with you, Tom, and others across the sector. The message was clear. We needed to protect the family farm, and the threshold was too low. So we increased it from £1 million to £2.5 million, which means that couples can pass on up to £5 million without paying inheritance tax on their assets. That's on top of existing allowances such as the nil rate band. And on our farming schemes, you wanted clarity and certainty. So in October, I announced mid-tier extensions. In January, I provided an overview of how SFI will be refined. And today, I will provide more detail on the SFI offer available this year following our engagement with farmers. But addressing immediate concerns is only part of the job, because building farming's resilience, the theme of this conference, is about taking a wider view of the challenges and opportunities ahead. Our policies must be grounded in the realities that you face. That's why our government commissioned Baroness Batters, your former president, to write a review on farming profitability. Minette's review sets out how we can help farmers become more profitable, more competitive for the long term, and support the environment. It's about the government and the sector working in partnership so that British farming can prosper today, tomorrow, and beyond. And working in partnership was the first of the 3 commitments I made to farmers last month at the Oxford Farming Conference. I said that this government is serious about partnership, that we're committed to giving you clarity and stability, and that we're backing you to grow with confidence and resilience. Today, I want to set out how we're delivering on each and every one of those commitments. So let me start with partnership, because it shapes everything that we are doing. I have always been deeply impressed by your ability to continually adapt, innovate, and rise to the challenges of the day. Each generation of farmers has faced new pressures. Right now, climate change, global instability, and biosecurity threats are placing pressure on our food system. This government believes food security should be treated as a matter of national security. But it shouldn't fall on your shoulders alone. I know that for too long, farmers have felt that policy was done to them rather than with them. Announcements made in Whitehall, landing in the farmyard with little warning, and little sense of how farmers had shaped policies. We must change this, and that's why I announced at Oxford that there would be a Farming and Food Partnership Board. This represents a fundamental reset of the relationship between government and the farming and food sectors. It will break down the silos between agriculture, food processing and retail. And I'm pleased to announce today that the first meeting of this new board will take place in March, and let me assure you, the NFU will be represented on it. We will confirm further members of the board shortly. One of the board's objectives will be to oversee sector growth plans, starting with horticulture and poultry, with others to follow. These plans will be practical, and today I want to announce more detail on what they will do. They will identify the barriers to growth and profit, including regulatory frictions, and set out how we can remove those barriers. They will consider how costs can be more fairly distributed across the food chain. And they will look at how we can grow the market share for our homegrown produce, whether through exports, retail, or public procurement. This is how we move from warm words to concrete action, sector by sector, challenge by challenge, in partnership with you. Because when you thrive, the nation thrives, with affordable, high-quality British food on the tables of families across the country. The board is just one of the Batters Review recommendations that we are taking forward. Last month, I announced a £30 million Farmer Collaboration Fund to help farmers share knowledge, build networks and drive innovation together. We are also consulting on planning changes to make it easier to build on-farm reservoirs, greenhouses, polytunnels and farm shops, so you are free to diversify, adapt and grow. And we are not stopping there. All of this work, the board and other Batters Review recommendations, will feed into the farming roadmap, which we will publish later this year. It will be shaped by our engagement with you, it will be grounded in your experience, and it will set the direction of British farming for the years ahead. But our ambitions don't stop at our borders. I am proud that our government, unlike the last administration, has promoted British agriculture in trade deals with India, the US and Korea. We want to see more British produce on tables worldwide. At Oxford, I committed to dedicated trade missions to showcase British food and drink overseas, and we are wasting no time. Next week, I'll be visiting Washington, DC and Maryland to promote British food and drink to the world's largest consumer market. Under our deal with the US, British beef now has exclusive access to the American market for the first time ever, a 13,000-tonne quota, opening up opportunities for our farmers to sell high-quality British beef to over 300 million consumers. This is exactly the kind of opportunity we need to seize together. I am delighted that the NFU will be joining me on the visit alongside other industry representatives. When we are making the case for British food on the world stage, I want farmer representation with me. We are also fixing the barriers closer to home that have held back trade with our closest neighbours. Earlier this month, I was in Paris meeting my French counterpart to discuss the SPS agreement we are negotiating with the EU. We talked about the huge opportunity the agreement will provide. Exports of agri-food to the EU have dropped by a fifth in the 5 years since Brexit. The SPS agreement will change that. It will make trade faster, easier and cheaper. Frictionless trade, efficient borders, open supply chains. We know that you want more detail on what the agreement will look like, and we will be setting that out soon. We will continue to work with you to make the SPS deal a success and ensure a smooth transition. This agreement will strengthen our shared food security, more British beef and dairy back on European tables, and seed potatoes making their way back to Europe for the first time since 2021. Seizing those opportunities abroad depends on farmers having confidence and resilience at home. That's why my second commitment is to provide you with clarity and stability. So let me turn to environmental land management schemes. I know that for many of you in this room, uncertainty in recent years has been damaging, not just financially, but in terms of trust. You need to be able to plan, and as I said at Oxford, SFI must work alongside food production, not displace it. A couple of weeks ago, I met Adrian and Charlotte Downing, who run Darville's Hill Farm in Buckinghamshire. It's a small mixed farm with native breed sheep, rare breed pigs, and an agroforestry approach that weaves trees and hedgerows into productive farmland. Over a cup of tea, they talked me through their approach, and then I saw it for myself, out on the land, how naturally the SFI scheme fits with what they're doing already with their business. The hedgerow management gives their livestock shelter and supports wildlife. Their grazing system improves soil health. Environmental management and productive farming working together on the same land. That's what SFI should look like. Not a choice between food and nature, but a system where both can thrive. So today I want to set out in more detail the changes to SFI. We are making the scheme simpler, and we have streamlined the actions available from 102 to 71. We have weeded out those that were duplicative or weren't delivering enough for food production or the environment. And judging by the low uptake, those which weren't working for you either. Later today, we will publish the full list of actions available from June. We are also making the scheme fairer. Right now, a quarter of the funding is going to just 4% of farms. That is not right. I want more farmers to have the opportunity to benefit from the scheme, and we need to reach our target to double the number of farms delivering for nature. We will introduce an agreement value cap of £100,000 per year so we can fund as many agreements for farmers as possible. And to put that in context, 97% of current agreement holders fall below that cap. We will also remove the SFI management payment for new agreements and rebalance a small number of payment rates. We are increasing rates for some moorland actions in both new and existing agreements to ensure hill farmers are properly compensated. And we are reducing rates for 3 arable actions. But I want to be clear on why we are making this change. I know that there have been reports that we're moving away from income foregone. That is simply wrong. Some rates were set too high, and too much of our most productive land was removed from conventional farming. Payments will still be fair and based on income foregone, but they'll support food production, not undermine it. I've explained how the offer will be simpler and fairer. Now I want to explain how we will provide stability. At Oxford, I confirm that there will be 2 application windows this year, June and September. The June window will prioritise small farms with up to 50 hectares. and those without existing ELM revenue agreements. Only farms with at least 3 hectares of agricultural land will be eligible, reflecting the Batters Review recommendation and the engagement we had with the sector. Full scheme details will be published before the scheme opens, clear budgets will be set for each window, and we will regularly update you on committed spend. There will be no more sudden, unexpected closures. Once these changes are in place, the main design of SFI will be stabilised so you know what to expect in years to come. All of these changes reflect genuine dialogue with the NFU and wider stakeholders. There was broad agreement on the direction of travel, and I believe this strikes the right balance. Value for money, stronger environmental delivery, and real simplicity while retaining choice for all farm types. An SFI that's simpler, fairer, and shaped with you. But resilience also means investing in infrastructure that lasts. So today, I'm delighted to announce that when we open the new round of ELM capital grants in July, there'll be up to £225 million available. That's 50% more than last year. This investment will help farm businesses invest in hedgerows for biodiversity, natural flood management measures, and livestock equipment to help improve water quality. And I know that those livestock farmers among you have real concerns about the threat that animal diseases pose. This brings me to my third commitment to back you to grow with confidence and resilience. We have seen the impact of animal diseases become more prevalent in recent years, with ongoing outbreaks of avian influenza and blue tongue in the UK, and risks such as cases of foot and mouth in Europe. Disease is a risk to individual businesses, supply chains, and the wider industry. Good biosecurity protects everyone, and it is vital we work in partnership with industry to tackle it. We are investing over £1 billion in a new National Biosecurity Centre at Weybridge. Planning consent has been gained with site clearance underway and a contractor appointed to build the science hub. This will be a world-class science centre protecting farmers and food producers that will have the capability and capacity to meet future animal disease threats. And we are supporting you out on the ground now. We have already funded over 11,000 vet-led reviews for cattle, sheep and pig keepers, and the evidence is clear. Early intervention works. So I'm pleased to announce today that from this summer, visits will be extended to poultry keepers for the first time. I'm also launching a consultation on making vet visits mandatory for cattle, sheep and pig farmers in England. And I want to hear your views, because the best way to fight disease is to stop it taking hold in the first place. Farming resilience is also about productivity. It's about innovation. It's about giving farmers the tools to build businesses that can withstand whatever the future throws at them. Today, I'm confirming £120 million in productivity grants for 2026. That starts with £50 million for the Farming Equipment and Technology Fund, which will open in March. Across England, we have seen what this kind of investment unlocks. In North Yorkshire, a farmer has upgraded their soil and fertiliser management with a direct drill. In Buckinghamshire, a new water delivery system is improving bird welfare. And in Shropshire, a flower grower is using solar-powered robots to plant and weed their crops. These aren't pilot projects or distant ambitions. These are real farms, real investments, and real results. And our investment goes beyond equipment. Today, I'm delighted to announce £70 million for the Farming Innovation Programme, helping farmers turn cutting-edge research into practical tools that boost productivity, growth, and resilience. The programme has already supported over 300 projects across the sector, from smart sprayers targeting blackgrass to techniques to maximise strawberry yields. You know what works on your farm. That practical knowledge, backed by the right investment support, is exactly what we will build businesses fit for the decades ahead. British farming has always been about resilience, about springing back after a hard season, adapting to a changing world and producing food for the nation. In January, I promised partnership, clarity and confidence. Today, I've shown how we're taking forward those promises, a farming and food partnership board with the NFU at its heart to reset how we work together. A simpler, fairer and stable SFI supporting food production and the environment with no more sudden, unexpected closures. A clear offer on capital grants and grants for productivity and innovation. Expanded biosecurity support and new trade missions to open markets for British food. These are not isolated actions. They are part of a determined effort to give British farming the foundation it needs to grow. We want farm businesses that are productive, profitable and resilient. We want to see more British food on more tables, here at home and around the world. And we want a countryside that is thriving for wildlife, for communities, and for the families who have worked this land for generations. This is an ambition we share. Let's build farming's resilience together. Thank you.
Could I please have Martin Emmett and Nick Dean to the microphones? Emma, look, there's a lot in there that we welcome. Clearly, the ability to work in partnership is something that we've been longing for a long while. We know we can't deliver all the solutions. We know you can't deliver all the solutions. And there's so much that collectively we can do if we have that shared ambition. The words growth, profit, the recognition of regulatory friction, and the need for confidence and resilience are all things that we talked about this morning, and we would fully endorse. We've got some barriers to the growth opportunities, and for many in this room, the annual investment allowance is one of those barriers, where at the moment the scope of the annual investment allowance doesn't bring in farm infrastructure and buildings. And for larger scale businesses, horticultural businesses, poultry businesses, even some of our larger dairy units, the cap is simply not high enough now for the level of investment that's required. So one of the opportunities we have is to really look at how we can shape that annual investment allowance to drive that investment on farm for the future. Our horticultural sector is one of the areas where I think we've all recognised that there is opportunity for growth. And I want to move on to begin with to Martin Emmett, just to raise an urgent, immediate issue that we have within the horticultural sector.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I trust the Secretary of State is aware that across agriculture, but particularly in horticulture, we have businesses that are high energy users with respect to both growing and storing crops. The new electricity standing charges that will be introduced in April will leave members facing price hikes of up to 149%, with no relief available. Can the Secretary of State assure conference that she will work urgently with the Department of Business and Trade to mitigate these costs and their inevitable impact on food price inflation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just say something broader about horticulture, and I will answer your question. I'm not going to avoid it. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Firstly, let me say that I think that, as you've heard me said in the speech, the Farming and Food Partnership Board, what we want to do with the sector growth plans is focus on horticulture and poultry, because we know that there's great opportunities to grow our horticulture sector, and we want to consume more of our homegrown fruit and veg. So let me just say that's my sort of opening kind of objective here. I hear you loud and clear on the issue that you've raised, that we are very much aware of and across, and my farming minister, Angela Eagle, is here with me today, and we are raising those concerns across government. We want to see horticulture grow, and we want to get under the skin of why we've seen a decrease in market share of UK grown horticulture, and we want to work in partnership with you and the new board to really boost our domestic production.
And I know you won't be able to comment for Lord Richard Walker, but he's been brought in as a cost of living czar, I think, to try and really get on top of this. And if we don't tackle this issue immediately, this is cost of living coming to the retail shelf because of a policy which doesn't recognise the energy intensity of horticulture. But on the other side of growing horticulture is the availability of water. And while for many of you in the audience today, talking about drought seems like a memory distant in the past, but for those who've got empty or had empty reservoirs, they really do feel the pressure of this every year. And I want to go to Nicholas Dean from Norfolk.
Thank you very much, Tom. Secretary of State, the EA are currently consulting on reserving water rights. The current proposals allow water companies to speculatively pre-book water resources on the basis that they might need them sometime in the future. This inhibits farmers from gaining the ability to access long-term, secure water supplies and hence the confidence to build reservoirs. Do you believe this is a strategy that contributes to food security? Because I don't.
Well,
before you answer that, Secretary of State, could I have Mark Humphrey and Paul Brown to the microphone, please, for the next questions? Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you very much for your question. I want to make sure that you and others get the water supply that you need, because as you say, that's critical to you producing the food that then is sold onto our markets and some into international markets as well. I will take away the issue that you raised, but can I also just take the opportunity to recognise the incredible voluntary contribution that farmers make in extreme weather. I mean, we have extreme weather from droughts. You're right to mention the scarcity of water in some parts of the country, but we've also seen awful storms, most recently, obviously, in Somerset and Devon, but also before that in Cornwall. I just want to thank the farmers who are out there helping people during that extreme weather, because I know that you face extreme weather, and I know from my own constituency the sort of impact that has on your crops and your yields. But I also just want to recognise that very often it's farmers who are helping people when we're in these extreme weather conditions. So thank you for that.
Well, that brings me very nicely on to our chairman from Somerset, Mark Humphrey, to ask a question about Somerset.
Oh, I didn't know. That was... There we go.
Thank you. Secretary of State, I have come from a very wet Somerset, which is slowly moving into a recovery period after the major flooding incident declared in January. This follows the major floods of 24 and 25. Water management in river and coastal areas must be properly funded to provide solutions to protect urban and rural businesses and communities. I would ask the Minister that where agricultural land is part of the solution, the value of that land to the nation, both now and into the future, must be considered and appropriately paid for. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. My heart goes out to you. You have been in a very difficult situation, and my Water Minister, Emma Hardy, visited that part of the country recently before the parliamentary recess. Look, we are doing a lot of reform in the water sector and the water system. We recognise that we need to do more. We've put a record £10.5 billion into flood defences, and that is maintaining existing flood defences and building new ones. But I know, given what you're going through at the moment, that might feel like cold comfort, given what you're experiencing. We will be publishing in the next few weeks a land use framework which will look at how we ensure a more strategic use of land, and we're also in our water reforms looking at catchment partnerships and how we boost the level of regional planning. So I hope that some of those things that we're doing in the water system will help farmers in the situation that you find yourself.
I think the critical thing for farmers in Somerset, but further afield that deal with flooding, is that where agricultural land is being used to stop other conurbations further downstream flooding, it's that recognition that there is real value which has been lost. And these events, which maybe were 1 in 100, are now much, much more frequent than that. And there needs to be the recognition of how challenging it is to actually farm that land profitably. And I know that you talked about natural flood management within your speech, but I think it's recognising the role that those farmers are playing in holding up that water and the service that's being provided, which is absolutely crucial to getting a fair outcome from this. Paul Brown.
Thank you, President. Paul Brown, Staffordshire. Minister, I've seen firsthand the damage that bovine TB inflicts on farming families and businesses. We've now lost one of our most effective control tools. And with the strategy refresh still pending, farmers are increasingly anxious as to recent progress. Farmers are increasingly anxious that recent progress in reducing TB could be undone. Given that the cattle TB vaccine is not ready to deploy, and we don't yet have evidence that vaccinating badgers will reduce TB in cattle, what is the government's plan now, in the here and now, not next week, not next month, but today, to ensure this devastating disease does not once again spiral out of control?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, and I can see that there's a strength of feeling about this. It's lovely to hear that you're from Staffordshire. I actually grew up in Staffordshire, up the road. It's always good to be back in the West Midlands. Look, TB, we know, is something that when it takes hold is absolutely devastating for farmers. I've had farmers in my own patch talk to me about cases they've had years and years ago, and it's still, you know, in their minds. We are seeking to have a strategy that is co-designed, because this is obviously something that's been quite divisive, and I know you've been waiting for the strategy, and I will tell you about the timeline in a minute, because I sense the urgency in your question. But this has been a divisive issue, and what we're trying to do is ensure that we bring all the different stakeholders together. So obviously you, the farmers, the vets, the scientists, the conservationists, so that we co-design a strategy based on the Godfrey report, and we will be publishing that in the spring, so it's coming soon. And Angela here, Angela Eagle, and I are prioritising that. There's, as you know, some trials around the vaccine as well, but let me just reassure you that it's really top of our inbox, and we know the devastation that disease causes when it takes hold. So thank you for the question.
And Emma, look, we recognise the importance of co-design here, but it is farmers on the ground that are dealing with this disease day in and day out. And I talked in my opening address about the mental health challenges and the pressures that build on the farming industry. And I'm afraid this insidious disease is one of those things that when it does take hold, it feels like it's out of your control. And we need this room and our members to believe when we see the strategy that there is a genuine plan for how we're going to eradicate this disease. And it can't come soon enough, because there's too many people that are impacted by this disease. There's too many cattle that are slaughtered every year. And the costs right the way across the system, you know, it is out of control. So we've got to get on top of this. And we're here to work with you, but we need a strategy that we believe can deliver those eradication goals. Could I have Claire Wise and David Barton, please? Claire, we'll come to you first because you're by the microphone there.
Thank you. A disaster for animal welfare is how a leading sheep expert has described the government's consultation on tail docking and castrating lambs. Indeed, 98% of farmers have confirmed that rubber ring usage, as it stands, is a non-negotiable for animal welfare. The government's own alternative recommendations for tailing and castration are unlicensed, impractical and inadequately tested. They will inevitably cause a lifetime of unintended welfare consequences for our sheep. You spoke today, Emma, about partnership and backing farmers. Will you listen to your farmers, our vets and the wider industry, who already lead the world in animal welfare? And will you ask that you withdraw the nonsensical lamb consultation immediately and instead work with us as an industry on a solution together?
Thank you. Well, thank you for the question. It's good to see you up there. Look, the point of the consultation is to flush out the issues that you are describing. So I would encourage you to engage with us, respond to the consultation, which is open for the next couple of weeks. As you know, it closes the week after next. So we need to have that discussion with you. We set out a very ambitious animal welfare strategy just before Christmas. We want to make sure that we improve animal welfare at home, on the farm and in the wild, and we want to see what we can do to make sure that we have the most humane practices out there, but also obviously balance that with something that works for farmers and the animals themselves. So please do respond to the consultation, and I look forward to engaging with you further.
Thank you. Can I have Matthew Donald to the microphone, please? David Barton.
Secretary of State, the Port of Dover has, according to recent reports, intercepted over 40 tonnes of illegal meat imports entering the UK in January alone. In reality, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The livestock sector, which I represent, is extremely vulnerable should this illegal meat be discarded and cause an outbreak of exotic disease such as foot and mouth disease. It also means that consumers are being misled thinking they may be buying British, or this may not even be fit for human consumption. What is your department doing to prevent this illegal trade? And secondly, can you guarantee we will have, as promised, the multi-species livestock information service for cattle released this year and sheep 2027, so we can effectively trace our livestock should the unthinkable happen? This has been worked on for over 9 years and reportedly cost the department $100 million to date. Can we have your assurance this will be delivered?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. This is something that we are working on. We are making some progress on, but we're not complacent. As you say, it's a big issue for your part of the industry, but it's a big concern for us as a department, the biosecurity threat that this represents. We have tightened up import controls. We have also tightened up enforcement. We have seized more illegal meat than ever before, but we've still got a lot more to do. If you don't mind, I'll take away the specific question that you asked. I think there's... I only took over the post on the 5th of September, but there seems to be lots of things that you've been promised for many, many years, so I think you've got some work to do. But I will come back to you on the specific question that you asked. Thank you.
I mean, I think this promise only came a year ago, more or less to the day, didn't it? But never mind, hey?
Oh, I see, when Steve was here, yeah. So many Secretaries of State. Right. I'm hoping I'll be back next year, but there we go.
So am I. Matthew.
Thank you. The proposed UK-EU SPS agreement will require GB to align with EU rules on many aspects of agricultural production. In the 6 years since Brexit, the agricultural sectors have experienced different levels of legislative divergence from Europe and between the devolved nations. In your speech, you touched on working with us for smooth transition. Do you recognise that we will therefore need a staged transition period to allow different sectors and nations time to adapt to the new legislation? And will this be a priority for the UK negotiators?
Thank you for your question. The SPS deal is a really big issue for the government. It's a big priority as part of that broader reset with the EU, which we promised the British people when we won in July 2024. And I just want to say something broader before I come to your question. I think this is really important. So we have seen, and I think, Tom, you've talked about this too, we have seen a big reduction, as I said in my speech, of our own exports going to the EU because of the friction, the cost, the delays, the risk, the uncertainty at the border due to Brexit. So we want to ensure that we are lifting that friction and ensure that there aren't those delays, which are particularly pertinent for agri-food exports. And that's the point of the SPS deal. So I think there's real opportunity here for your sector to produce more British food that goes on to European, is sold into the EU. However, we are well aware of the different sensitive issues that this encompasses. We've worked very closely with you, Tom, and your team throughout the negotiations. I was in Brussels just before the start of the formal negotiations back in November, December. All I can say is I can't provide a running commentary on the different aspects of those sensitive issues. You've touched on one of them, and I said something about smooth transition in my speech, because this is an ongoing negotiation. But all I want to say is I hear you, I hear your concern, and it is something that we want to ensure that this is a deal that works for you, because that's the whole point, that we have a deal that smooths the path to you being able to export more to our closest market and one of our largest markets. So I really hope, the prize is big, and I understand the concerns, but the prize is big, and As I say, I can't provide a running commentary on the very specific details, but we're well across the concerns, Tom, that you and your colleagues have put to us.
I've not got anybody waving at me yet, so can we have two more, please? Andrew Williamson and Will Dickinson to the microphones. What I would say there, Emma, is you're absolutely right. We cannot fault the engagement that our trade team and that ourselves have had within trying to shape the priorities as we look at where the friction is going to be, where we need those transition arrangements. So I think it's well understood. It's now on how that can be negotiated within the EU that's going to be the critical part. But at the moment, our access and working in partnership to make sure it's understood is absolutely right.
Can I just add to that? The Prime Minister and the entire government will only sign up to a deal that's in the national interest, and we've been very clear about that. But we are determined that we should negotiate an SPS deal that will deliver for you.
Andrew Williamson.
Thank you. Many of the delegates in this hall have been engaged in agri-environment schemes for many years. We have been for nearly 30 years. We were early adopters of the SFI and one of the first SFI 23 agreements, which expires in October this year. That's in addition to our countryside stewardship agreement. Can you, Secretary of State, please assure conference that we and others will be able to apply for a new agreement this year, 2026, without a gap in the agreement or the funding?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Look, I know this is a real concern, and by the way, congratulations on the scheme that you successfully applied to in 23. Look, I know this is a real concern, and I know because of the rollover of the mid-tier as well, there's lots of people who've got agreements coming to the end in that period leading up to December and the end of the year. We are looking, I can't give you an assurance today, but we are looking operationally about how we deliver this. The intent is there. I want to be able to ensure that you can apply before the end of your agreement, obviously for an agreement that starts after the end of your agreement, but we just need to make sure we can deliver that operationally. So the intent is there. I can't give you a guarantee today, but we are working on it.
I think that ambition is something which there'll be a lot of people in this room who would really benefit from the ambition that you show there, because those schemes, we know we've got over 10,000 that will expire at the end of this year, and to think that there won't be continuity or available budget for those schemes, it's unthinkable. So we will work with you to try and make sure the IT systems can deliver that. What's wrong with a scrap of paper? Hey, we can just backdate it. Will Dickinson.
Secretary of State, how long will it be before the government stops illegal fly tipping by resourcing law and order properly and with appropriate sentencing of guilty parties? The current law enforcing farmers to pay to clean up huge incidents on their land is a travesty of justice that surely must be righted.
Well, thank you for the question. Look, we have seen this becoming a much bigger issue than it was maybe 5-10 years ago. There are significant sites in different parts of the country, and we are working across government and with law enforcement. We have a joint unit on this. The Prime Minister is also seized of this issue. So we are really putting more resource into the Environment Agency. We have doubled their budget with regard to the enforcement of this. The idea, obviously, is that the polluter pays. We are making some progress on that. We've made, I didn't myself, I'm not part of the police, but there were some significant arrests last week. And we do believe that some of the perpetrators of this criminal activity, organised crime, and they're venturing into illegal waste. So we have got a cross-government effort looking at, how we strengthen our tools to crack down on this, but I recognise that it's a really big problem. In fact, I have a farmer in my own constituency who's had significant fly tipping as well. So I hear you, we are working on it. It's not an easy thing to deal with because of the way the perpetrators use other people's land, and sometimes their own land, by the way, to dump this illegal waste onto. And we're looking at also what are the levers and the pull factors, and we're also looking at what we can do to boost the technology that the Environment Agency uses so that they can see what's going on and anticipate some of the problems. So we're looking at what we can do to help clear sites in the extreme circumstances like we're doing in Kidlington, and we're looking at how we can prevent this in the first place. But it's not an easy challenge, and thank you for the question. It's a really, really big issue for the government.
But let's call these people what they are. They're organised criminals that
indeed.
are targeting the environment by fly tipping this waste. And it's just gone on for far too long. And unfortunately, there's cases where it's £50,000 to clear up waste which is nothing to do with you. And there isn't that money to suddenly find to pay you that cost. So it's something, again, I think what you see from the range of questions is that this job is never easy.
No,
there is such a broad array of things that are impacting the farming industry. And when people say it's an industry bereft of confidence, it's because it can feel like we're being attacked from all angles, and there's no easy way to navigate our way through that. But I think what we've heard clearly from you today, Emma, is a willingness to work in partnership. And that is how we will get on top of this, is by identifying the issues, working out the solutions, listening to the industry where we have the consultations and making sure it's not a foregone conclusion, because there would be some disastrous impacts if we don't listen openly to that feedback that comes in. But I do want to thank you for the way that you've been willing to engage with us, for coming here today. And conference, could you please thank the Secretary of State?
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Very much.